Good evening, everybody. This is Random Encounter,
This is Althena.
And Silbeck.
and we would like to welcome you to yet another Post-Mortem for our Valiant Gamers Game of the Month. This month it was the first of 3 and hopefully more Shenmue games, but you always got to start at the beginning, so we started with number 1.
Yes. I have a lot to say about the future of Shenmue. We can touch upon this later, but no, this was pretty much since the beginning. I definitely had to get through the Lunar games because, well, I'm Althena. But I knew I wanted to play Shenmue, so I was really excited to bring the first game of the Shenmue series as a game of the month, and I'm so glad that so many of you hadn't even seen it before. It has such a great history, a great soundtrack. There's a lot of background to the game, and not only in just the lore of the game, but the lore behind the game too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talk about it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
And sorry, go for it.
I was going to say, I had never really seen Shenmue before, and if I'm being a little non-serious right now, I thought it was about the lower portion of a cow's leg.
What?
He's
Shenmue.
bringing big dad energy tonight.
Oh.
There were no cows unless they were in one of the capsules in the machines and we didn't have time to get it. Maybe there's one in there, but no. I'm extremely excited to see this game come. If you had not chosen this at some point, it's inevitable that I probably would have, like you. Shenmue is near and dear to me. Probably one of the last games that I have like a childhood like level of nostalgia for, because it's right there on that cutoff. Like I'm starting to get to my late teens and that little bit of getting jaded starting to set in,
Yeah.
But I'm right there at the cusp. I'm not quite there yet. So I have the chance I could still enjoy something in life, and that thing is Shenmue. Yeah, and it's I have a lot of thoughts about it too, and looking forward to sharing that during our review later. It's one of those games that really just aimed for the stars, and it got to the stratosphere at the very least. Yeah. It was extremely ambitious in a way. Like we've talked about some ambitious games here in our Game of the Month series, but this is definitely one that takes the cake thus far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to go into at this point like how we first became familiar with Shenmue and the effect that it had on us, or do you want to save that more for like later in the...
Well, we can talk about that now, because later I really wanted to get into the weeds on Shenmue itself, but my introduction to Shenmue was as a Christmas present for my Dreamcast, and I sit here, and I know I've already gone at great length during our previous streams about how much I loved my Dreamcast. It was... I was a bit of a Nintendo kid growing up, and then I had a Sega Genesis back in the day, had a Sega CD, and then the 32X, the Saturn, all that flew under my radar because I was starting to play PlayStation games, and then I was spending a lot of time on my PlayStation. So I'm very glad though that I managed to have Sega's last hoorah before they got out of the console business, because I don't know. It was just everything about the Dreamcast just screamed it wanted to be a part of the future, even if everything wasn't always there. It had built-in modem before the PlayStation 2. It's not the first console that had a modem, but it was the first one where it really, made sense to use. It was well thought out. The X-Band is ambitious.
It wasn't an afterthought.
Right. The X-Band, as ambitious as it was very it was a little bit ahead of its time, whereas the Sega Dreamcast definitely was right there of its time in a way that no other console was doing. We were starting to get bigger games on bigger mediums, moving away from CD, not quite towards DVD just yet, but I mean, your controllers too were just really interesting as well, because you had these VMU memory
The
cards
VMUs,
that
yes.
ate up a fuck ton of batteries if you even wanted to try using them for what they were meant for, playing these little mini games and stuff. But the fact that like they put all of this attention into just throwing all this stuff into the walls, I don't think I've seen somebody just be as adventurous with their consoles like outside of Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo throws gimmicks at us all the time. They have, and they still do, but
Probably will.
And they probably will. But yeah, I mean, like everything about this console just screamed, I have to get to know you, and I have to get to know you now. My first exposure to it, before I let somebody else take the reins here, was Soul Calibur. And I saw Soul Calibur in the arcades. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the original Soul Blade, but Soul Calibur was one of the rare cases where the arcade port was better. I mean, the console port was better than the arcade port in every way.
Yep.
Looked better, sounded better, a lot more stuff to do. It was fantastic. I was really excited. It was a huge step up from the PS1. And to say nothing of Shenmue, right? But yeah.
Yeah. So I bought a Dreamcast to play Shenmue because I saw an article about it in some magazine, and I thought that it looked really interesting. The concept of the game of being like a kind of like a real life like simulator was definitely new to me, and it intrigued me. And I also was kind of in my Japan phase, so the fact that I would be like living my life in Japan was appealing to me. So I actually saved up my money. I bought it. It was the first console that I had bought completely with my own money without like help from my parents.
Nice.
And I bought Shenmue, and I loved my Dreamcast. If you ask me today what my favorite console of all time is, I would probably say the Dreamcast. Not because it was such a fantastically successful system, but because the games on it were so memorable and good to me, that it really just made that console shine. The experience, the online capabilities was amazing. The games that I had were amazing. I loved Phantasy Star Online, Space Channel 5, Shenmue, so many great games. And I made some friends playing Phantasy Star Online that I still have to this day. I played Phantasy Star Online with Grimace, who was in chat. So like good memories, definitely, of that game. But I loved playing Shenmue. It was a nice little escape, and I just kind of I always was interested in Asia and Asian history in general, but it really kind of helped bring a lot of it to like for me to like look into like the culture and the reason behind the culture, that there's so much different from the US, and so it really kind of changed my life. I've always been a fan of kung fu movies, so and I've loved fighting games, so just this game just really checked all the boxes for me. So
I think you said a lot of things that I feel very strongly about. Always grew up with a big interest in Asia. Part of that was fueled initially by wondering, where are my video games coming from? Where are these? Who are these companies? Sega, Nintendo. What are these strange words? And also, I was getting into a little bit of interest in Chinese history through my exposure to Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So, I didn't necessarily get a Dreamcast for the purpose of playing Shenmue, but it was definitely on my radar in terms of, I think this is going to be a special experience. You should be looking out for it. And I got it as a Christmas present, and it delivered. Now, Scott, I seem to remember you saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you had a Dreamcast back in the day when it was new. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a bit more to it than that. I had a friend who got a Dreamcast in 1999 for Christmas. Um, and so I got to see a bit of the Dreamcast, but we're talking like Puyo Puyo Fever or Pop or whatever it is, and Sonic
Right.
Adventure and Space Channel 5. Um, it was something that I got to see at a glance that made me feel like I truly understood where the future of 3D gaming was going.
Mm.
But it was a short-lived glance because that was a time in my life where I made a lot of terrible decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and had a lot of moving around. And so I was kind of out of the gaming scape probably for the 2 years that the Dreamcast was a relevant system.
Mm.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of saying a lot if you think about it. It did only really stay relevant for about 2 years, and it had so many cool experiences on it. It's
Mhm.
almost, to me, almost as impressive as the Game Boy Advance in terms of very short lifespan, very broad and memorable library. But
So,
I didn't get
yeah.
my first real experience with Dreamcast until probably 2001 or 2002, after I had already gotten a GameCube. Um, and I had a buddy who owned Shenmue and was playing through it. And at the time, I didn't know what was going on. He didn't do a very good job explaining anything. And I was just looking at it, seeing him run around almost aimlessly. And I was pretty bored by it. I was not encaptured by any charm at that time.
This is
No
So
cows in
I'm
sight.
reminding me of a story that I have to share before I forget, because I tried to do something similar when Shenmue 2 came out. Because Shenmue 2 came out with a DVD of Shenmue the movie. It was basically a supercut of all of the cutscenes from the first game strung together to form a narrative for people that had not played the original on the Dreamcast. And
there.
I was wanting to get a friend of mine, Erica, to feel hyped about the game. So I brought this DVD over thinking they're going to think this is hot shit, guys, and sat down and watched
And
this
they did.
DVD. And let's just say their enthusiasm for Shenmue did not quite live up to my enthusiasm for Shenmue. They were quite bored, and after about 10 minutes, I'm like, yeah, we can play some Grand Theft Auto 3. It's fine. But deep down, I felt like such an asshole. And Chad
No.
has said a lot here that we are going to double back to. I promise I'm going to get to you guys. You had mentioned that the Dreamcast lifespan was really short, but there was so much that went on during that time. I mean, the console debut, just looking and behaving very interestingly, and this kind of doubles back to the troubles that Sega was having in the background leading up to the Dreamcast. I think a lot of us here already know this, but if some wanderer who's not too familiar comes in and watches the VOD or just is hanging out in chat, Sega had pissed away a lot of their goodwill by developing all of this interesting but poorly supported hardware in the form of the Sega CD, the 32X. Wandervox says that he's going to stop us and say the Saturn was the best Sega console of all time. I disagree, but there is room for multiple opinions here. The Saturn was a great system. Had some issues though, in terms of developer support, making the most use of the hardware, and all of those things put together. Sega was just not treating their vendors very well, right? And you can't just be throwing all of this hardware out there and not being consistent in your support behind it. Not sure if a year or so down the road they're just going to put out another add-on that you're now going to have to train your staff to program for, port all of your ongoing projects over to that new hardware. It's a whole fucking mess. And then
Yeah.
Sega of America and Sega of Japan, two really powerful entities in and of themselves, should be the same company working together with the same goals, just in different regions, but they had two fundamentally different ideologies on how to proceed. And I don't know if there's maybe a little bit of jealousy in just how well Sega of America was going, and I don't know how much Sega of America was just determined to do their own thing and not stay the course and keep a unified strategy. But all those things put together, you have just a total mess leading up to the Dreamcast. And I think that at that point, there had to be some desperation in the background of Sega saying, we've got to do something or we're kaput as a company. And this is our last shot.
Yeah.
And ultimately, in terms of supporting future hardware, it didn't work out. Sega pulled out of the business. We're lucky that we still have them today. They're still producing great games. It will never stop being weird to me seeing Sega games on a Nintendo console. Never, ever. If you grew up in that era, I can't be the only one that feels that way, but
no,
I'm happy. I'm just going to say that I'm just happy that there's a future that has Sega in it versus not.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why it took, almost 20 some on years for Shenmue 3 to come out as a crowdfunded game versus, put out by Sega is just kind of a remnant of that. And like Yu Suzuki's exit from Sega, it's all a remnant of like that whole era in general was just such a hubristic time for gaming in general, whether it be Sega, whether it be Sony. There is so much like of that mentality of we're untouchable. We can do anything we want. The fans will buy the games. We don't need to worry about talking to our friends across the sea and making sure we're on the same page with things. It'll sort itself out. And we're still seeing ramifications from that to this day.
But wasn't it exciting though? Just a little bit.
It was exciting. It was exciting.
I think
not for me.
Not for you. Why not?
Well, I didn't care about Shenmue. Why would I be excited?
Well, I'm talking about just in general, a lot of the shit talking that was going on back in the day between not only fans of these products, but the companies themselves amongst each other, but also just the rapid technological advancements that we had in the 90s in the gaming sphere. That was exciting.
That is fair. I apologize. I linked everything you were saying about this to the Shenmue 3 announcement because we were talking about that just a minute ago.
I was using it as an example. Sorry.
We will definitely cover that at least a little bit here. I've been thinking today about how much I want to talk about Shenmue, the series as a whole right now.
This is going to be the longest post-mortem we've done yet, isn't it?
I don't think so.
So I would like to try to stick to, for the most part, with a few maybe offshoots into, the future and stuff like that. Right. I want to say, I'll say it right now, I do plan on my next game of the month being Shenmue 2, and my game of the month after that being Shenmue 3. So
you're good for a whole year. How good does that feel? You don't even have to think much. Like, yep, I'm just going to get up tomorrow for the next 365 days thinking about Shenmue. And I mean, hey, you could do a lot worse.
That's good. I don't like thinking much.
Because math is hard.
Exactly.
But
English.
Yeah, I feel the same way that you do. There's going to be a place to talk about Shenmue as a whole and the incredibly long wait that we had to see the story progress. There will be a time and a place for that conversation, and I think we can touch on that a little bit. But I really want tonight to be a celebration about just this time and place here that I was so happy to be a part of. People were talking about in chat. The Dreamcast was a fundamentally awesome system for somebody that wanted to play around with their hardware in a way that you just couldn't really do back in the day with any other console that came before that. I mean,
very true.
It's anti-piracy features could be best described as almost non-existent. So I mean, with some swap, initially it was swap disk that would get you to boot stuff up, but then people figured out just how to make bootable Dreamcast disc, and that was great. Like, I emulated a fuck ton of games, like Nintendo and even like Super Nintendo games on my Dreamcast. Maybe I should get another. I remember, like, I would go and spend weeks at a time at my grandmother's house during the summer, bringing just a bunch of books and my Dreamcast. I was good to go. And Vox was also talking about how the system is still getting support to this day from homebrewers. Love to see that. I was wondering.
It makes me happy.
Yeah.
I was
There's actually
wondering
some
if like they had
real-
made any significant developments with like Super Nintendo emulation, because I remember back in the day, Dream's NES, the big Super Nintendo emulator, it wouldn't quite run full speed unless like you were willing to do certain things like turn off sound, turn off transparencies. In fact, like people were taking PAL games and running those because, you know, at 50 frames a second, there was a likelihood you could get close to full speed compared to 60 frames. It was wild, but super novel.
I don't know about the emulators, but um, people have found a way to directly port a Thomas Wave arcade games, which uses Dreamcast hardware, to Dreamcast.
Nice.
And that has enamored me more than anything. That has been the biggest proponent for me wanting to actually get a Dreamcast and experience the console for myself today, over anything else.
So one problem that you would run into burning disk and trying to run those discs on the Dreamcast is that the Dreamcast had this weird optical media. It wasn't a CD, wasn't DVD, it was a GD-ROM, where it was
Right.
basically a
Goddamn
CD.
ROM.
Yeah, the goddamn ROM. And it was basically, I want to say that it was basically like the CD format, but with less like error checking like segments on the disk in order to allow for more space storage, like a little bit over a gig or so. Those drives were so temperamental, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of just burning a disk and playing it on it to burn your drives out. So
if I'm being completely honest,
Mhm.
I would probably just get an optical drive emulator.
Same. Yeah. I mean, if you're if you're gonna like go the hardware route these days, that's definitely something worth looking into, because that drive is kind of running on borrowed time if you do any significant work with it.
Hell, they all are. GameCube, PS2, all of them.
That is true, but it seems to me that the failure rate on Dreamcast optical drives is a little bit higher than other systems of the era. Like I've got a PlayStation 2 that still works just fine.
Yeah, you could be right. I know a lot of Xboxes are going out and a lot of GameCubes are going out.
Well, the Xbox.
Now you're making me.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
so the original Xboxes are going out in part because of bad capacitors in them. That
Yes.
if you don't get to them in time and get them out of the system and replace them with a good capacitor, they'll just burst all over the PCB, and yeah, you've got a giant
For
ass
sure.
doorstop.
But on the flip side, I have 2 original Xboxes right now, and both seem to work just fine, except for the optical drive. One, the motor's broken, busted, and the other, I think the laser's out.
Yeah.
Now you make me want to pull out my Dreamcast and see if it still works.
Now that's a system. The Xbox also has gotten a lot of love from the homebrew development community. But and let's face it too, at the end of the day, really the original Xbox is just the Dreamcast 2. Changed my mind.
I mean, can you look any further than the fact that the original release, North American release of Shenmue 2 was on the Xbox and not the Dreamcast?
The controllers, the original Big Duke, like massive controllers.
Dukes?
Yeah, the Dukes, they give me big Dreamcast controller vibes.
Absolutely.
I love those controllers. They were like the most comfortable controllers for the time for my big ass hands.
They were comfy.
So typically with our Post-Mortems, we do a little bit of a musical segment for you guys, because that's one of the big draws for our community. Is not only do we like video games, we're nerds, and we like the music that's contained within them. And that is not going to change tonight. You guys are going to have not only your typical Team Valiant Gamers picks of the month, but it's going to be a little bit longer than the ones that we've had before, because I'm just going to be clear. This game has a fuck ton of music, like a lot. Like we talk about, I think we've talked about Final Fantasy 14. We talk a lot about that game here in our little circle, having a lot of music. But this game, I just don't know of many RPGs like this that had this amount of music, because when I was just going through today looking at a game rip, it was over 250 tracks, but even if you take away the duplicates and the sound effect tracks and stuff, it was still over 150 individual tracks of music, which is crazy.
Yeah, most of most of the shops had their own theme. Most of the areas had their own theme. Most of the different shops had different songs depending on what time of day it was. Like there was just so much in that game that, I mean, it was warranted. I mean, it and what's nice is that there's a few songs that are, you know, less than memorable, but there's a lot of bangers on the soundtrack too.
There is, and we're going to be sharing a slightly larger than normal amount of that music tonight. It's about 23 minutes worth, so you guys have a lot to look forward to. But let me tell you something. Trying to track that music down is a Herculean effort, because as we've discussed privately, Shenmue 1's music, or even really just the whole series, is very piecemeal. There's not, like most games of this era came with full soundtracks, a full selection of the game, which granted, you know, as we discussed, Shenmue has an abnormally large amount of music, so it's understandable maybe not all of that's going to go on a CD or 2 or 3. That's a 4-disc effort right there. Understandable, right? So there's just so many little collections of officially released music out there that doesn't even come close to reflecting that body of music. And there's just been all these like game rips of Shenmue just floating out there over the years. I've got some rips that I've had since like, the mid 2000s, just still sitting around on an external hard drive of mine. I did see that in about 2018, I think with the release of the remastered version of Shenmue, which we played, they also released a corresponding soundtrack to go with the PS4 version. I thought, well, surely somebody's got a rip of this out there somewhere, and I'm just going to be real with you. You know, I looked for a rip at first, and I couldn't really find it. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I'm like, well, you know what? It's only fair that I do the legit thing, and I go out and I buy it. You know, and as we should. If you like music, whether it's video game music or whether it's conventional music, you should support your artist. You should try to pay for it.
Absolutely.
And we fully support that here. And in fact, I was looking through Nightbot, and I had initially had some links set up to buy the Vagrant Story soundtrack, and we just haven't kept those commands up to date, which I would get better about doing that. But anyway, I'm getting off the point. Let me get back on track here. So all I wanted to do was go out and buy this music legitimately. So it's on streaming platforms. Like you can go to Apple Music and you can go to Spotify, you can listen to the soundtrack, and that's fine. You know, they'll get impressions from those listens. That's something. But I'm kind of one of those weird nerds. It's not just that I want to listen to the music, but I would kind of like to listen to it whenever I want to, even if it's offline. Like, there's something to be said about ownership of your books, ownership of your movies, your games, your media in general, and I just wanted to own a copy. So I figured, well, surely there's something out there on Amazon. Nope. Surely I can buy it from Apple. Nope. So the only place that I could find you could buy it online was from Amazon Japan, and Amazon Japan just flat out told me, no, you're not Japanese. You're not going to get it. So I'm like, okay. So there was another website, I believe this one was called Mado, and completely in Japanese, so I'm stumbling through it with the bare amount of Japanese that I can read, and Google Translate on what I couldn't figure out, taking almost half an hour to try to sign up for this account. It wouldn't let me use Amazon to log in because it was a US account, so I just raw dogged it and I made a standard account. And then I go to add, it's like 1,500 yen, so probably about $15, give or take. Maybe, more or less. The yen's a little bit weak right now. The point I'm trying to make is I went to go buy it, and then in Japanese it told me, oh, we're sorry. We see that you're in America, or you're not in Japan, so we can't sell this to you. And I'm like, God damn it, motherfucker. It was just, I wanted to give somebody my money today. I had like $15. I'm like, here, you can have this. I just want the music. That's all that I want. I just want it legit. Like, I wasn't even at this point looking for a rip. I just wanted to pay somebody. And alas, I couldn't do that. Are you guys still here? Did I scare everybody? Did I scare everybody off?
You're good. I'm trying to find the collector's edition of Shenmue 1 and 2 HD, because I believe that came with the soundtrack, did it not?
I think so.
But I'm not finding it. I don't know.
Thanks, Fox. I'm here to keep it classy, if nothing else. But yeah, my point is,
Here it is. I found it. Yeah,
nice.
I found a sealed copy of the collector's edition on eBay for $70.
We want your money, but we're sure as hell going to make you work for it. I mean, that's not even really true at the end of the day. That I couldn't give anybody my money because I'm outside of Japan, and the state of international music rights is a mess across all forms of music. So games are
come now.
Games are
You could pay $800 for a round trip ticket to go to Japan and buy it legitimately. And
sure, I could do that. I could pay for an $80 PS4 collection that I can't make use of because I don't have a PS4 to get the disc that maybe then I can rip for myself. I'm assuming that they're on disc, or not
yes.
Blu-ray, in which case if they're on Blu-ray, then that's more work. And the point is, I just want to give people money to own my shit. That's all that I want.
I forgot the Nightbot command.
Well, maybe you should follow the the commandment and get good.
Oh.
I only know one command, and it's the one that leads us to our website. So
that is the most important. Yeah, that's the most important command to remember. Please join us at valiantgamers.com, where you can listen to me rave like a madman about how we should be able to own our shit these days. Please and thank you.
I don't think you're mad for thinking that. I agree with you completely.
Oh, I'm not like mad as in crazy. I'm just, you know.
You said madman. That usually implies crazy. So
a little bit. I miss owning things. Yeah, me too. Me too, Grimace. Me too.
Yeah, Grimace. I'm at a point where I consider my video games a lot like going out to the bar. The games are the drinks, and I'm having a great time with them. But once I'm done, I'm done. I get all my games digitally, where I only own the license to play software, not the software itself. But I'm okay with that because, and this is just my stance, not anyone else's, I'm a dirty, dirty pirate where I get the software for myself anyway to play later.
Steam, Sony, and whoever else has the power to completely decimate me at a moment's notice. Yeah, seriously. What were you about to say, Nicole?
I'm sorry. I actually forgot.
I'm sorry about that. Steam says, good luck, loser. Well, in all fairness, it looks like, to Steam's credit, they recently revised their subscriber agreement to give stronger legal protections, where a lot of companies are forcing you, if you want to take any legal action, to go through arbitration, which is usually heavily weighed in their favor. In this case, with Steam, you actually have to go to court. So it's still got to be expensive if you were to go down that route, but you at least have a fighting shot, you know, of whatever it is that hopefully you'll never have to do. But
yeah.
And so this is now turned into a legal podcast. I see.
None of us here are lawyers, so please understand, do not take legal advice from any of us. That I mean, it's barely even legal musings at this point, but it is sad. It is sad that we have to, you know, we can't have anything anymore. You know, everything is subscription based and it can be taken away at a moment's notice. And in a way, that was part of the impetus at starting a forums, where it's like, I can't, so I can't guarantee that there's always going to be a Valiant Gamers, but as long as we'll have it up, we want it to be a place where, you know, people can gather and talk about things that they're passionate and can get something out of that and feel like that they have some kind of ownership and stake in the community that they have. And we
like so much of our excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay, go for it.
But like so much of, I know that when you and Scott and I all talked about starting up Valiant Gamers again, it was we were all on the same page. Like, we wanted to create a place that would be a place to stay and have things that would be easy to find again, like threads on other platforms, not so great. You know, it was nice to bring that back. Yeah, it's very hard.
Yeah.
But
no, the sad state of threading on Discord is a terrible thing. But anyway, go ahead.
I didn't want to say I didn't want to name names, but now that you said it, yeah,
I'm throwing it
is-
out there. Threaded discussion on Discord absolutely sucks, and
does.
Discord has suffered a little bit from the enshittification that is going on in other places of the internet too. And
I'm
I'll
going to
throw it
use
out there.
enshittification.
I'm glad that I nailed that word on the first try. It's a lot.
I hate
Sorry.
how easy it is to see a comment and immediately forget or not even read or care of who said it on places like Reddit, because it's so broad and so open to so many people
Right.
Mhm.
that it's like there's not you're at least in my experience, I know a lot of people have found a lot of success meeting people on Reddit, but you're not likely to see the same person more than once in a thread of discussion
Right.
on Reddit. And to me, it's like, well, what if, some people come back and respond, but a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, raw dogging and shitification, tomfuckery. We've got all the words tonight.
Absolutely. So I think we're getting off track a little bit. I want to keep things
A little
moving
bit.
along.
But I do
Cow legs,
do
cow
have
legs.
a direction. I do have a direction that I want to take
Yeah.
this.
No, I know.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier today, because another one of the big draws of the original Valiant Gamers forum, and the forum that it, was generated from, was the discussion and sharing of video game music. And even back in the day, and really especially back in the day too, where it wasn't very easy to come across video game music. You didn't have YouTube or Spotify or any number of sundry streaming websites to go and listen to this stuff. So you had to kind of own this music in some way, or you just weren't going to listen to it at all outside of playing these games. And I'm a big fan of the Koei games, as Nicole knows. Like everybody, when they think of Koei, they think of Tecmo Koei these days, but I'm talking about old school Koei, turn-based Romance of the Three Kingdoms, some real spreadsheet, boring shit that I just ate up as a kid. I can't explain it, but I loved it. Gemfire was one of my favorite games. It's very much Babby's first strategy game. It's very simple, but it just has a comfy little aesthetic. I can play a game and beat the game in an afternoon, and I can put it down and not pick it up for another year, and then I love it the next time I play it.
And it has pasta.
It has pasta and a great soundtrack that punches well above its weight for a game of its kind. So I became aware that there was a soundtrack, like an arranged soundtrack for Gemfire, and I had to track this down, and I couldn't find it anywhere except for a little forum called Gamesakai, the immediate predecessor of Valiant Gamers, and that is how I found you lot. So yeah, we've been friends for 20 some odd years ever since then. I'm thankful that a little soundtrack made that possible, and there's always something about that I felt really grateful for that. And one of the things that we thought of when starting Valiant Gamers again is, do we want to broach the subject of sharing music? Because things are a lot different now than they were back then. I mean, the music in a lot of ways is more accessible. We have better computers with larger storage space. If we wanted to get the music, it's a lot easier to do these days. But as we discussed, I feel like the internet is on the precipice of just all the good things that we love about it are going away, and it's becoming just engorged with advertising and artificially generated content, and it's hard to tell what's worth reading or visiting or being a part of anymore. And there's something that I miss about that old internet, where I can go and hit Google and see where it takes me, and more often than not, I'm going to find something interesting versus something that's just search engine optimization garbage. Whereas nowadays it's the opposite. It's like, if I find something interesting in that glut of mess these days, that's a good day. And usually I don't. So
Enshittification manifest.
The enshittification manifest. So again, I don't know what the future holds in store for Valiant Gamers, but as long as it's here, one of the big things that we wanted to do with Valiant Gamers is share that music again in some way. And again, to be clear, we encourage you to go out and buy your music and listen to your music and stream it and show these artists love that they deserve. But when we started the site, we were talking about how can we make this happen again, and we have thought about it for months. We have had solutions come and go, things that looked promising just not really pan out. And I'll just say it, I think we have something that I think is tenable in the future that is a little bit of that old spirit of sharing music, but also a little bit of the newer niceties of being on the internet, the ability to stream things, but you can also have the music. And
yeah, you can save it for yourself.
Yeah. So pretty much everybody here in chat that I can see has already had a chance to try this out. But we have set up a video game music library for our community to take part of. And all that we ask, if you want to get in on that, is just participate in the community. So if you do go to valiantgamers.com, you will see some members with that shiny little gold Valiant that's above their head. You know, a golden badge. You know, it's probably one of the least problematic golden badges that people have worn in time. We're trying to take it back. But in all seriousness, though, a lot of our early adopters, you know, we gave that Valiant status, and people that have contributed significantly to the community. And in short, you know, we want to give Valiant status to people that are willing to be a part of the community. So all that we ask, if you like what we're doing here, just come and post. Share some things that are interesting with you. Bring that spirit of forums visiting back when that was popular, that initial Reddit experience of finding something cool on the internet, you know, and share it with actual people and not AI robots. And
yeah. Come to a closer knit community.
And I was very happy to see that one of the selections available on the new sharing site for us is Gemfire.
Absolutely. There's no way that I wasn't going to put that up there. It truly is a full circle moment. And Skunkworks asks, can AI robots index your forum? As of now, anything that's publicly accessible, yes. I mean, we can't stop that. I mean, AI robots are going to do what they're going to do. You know, we could play around with our robots.txt file and ban some things, but you know, there's a lot of unscrupulous bots out there that don't give a shit what you define in there, and they're just going to take stuff in there anyway. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of the publicly viewable internet that's not being crawled by bots right now. Now, we had a little bit of a spam problem a couple of months ago that we managed to nip in the bud. Thankfully, it didn't lead to a lot of like spam or security issues happening on the forums, but we did get a lot of bogus signups of, you know, we were like, oh, hey, look, it's a new account. Oh, hey, look, it's 5 new accounts. Wow, the stream's really catching on. Oh shit, it's 10 accounts and they're all from, oh, God damn it. So yeah, we had to take a couple of days to get that, wrapped up. Oh, and he does. He'll ban anybody at the drop of a hat. He's not very good at banning, but he'll try.
I'm doing my best.
Anyway, I'm getting into some rambling spots here, and we have music coming up here that's going to take about 20 minutes of our time, so I'll just, you know, cut this short. We do have a library put out there for members of the community. It is only accessible to Valiant members of the Valiant community, but the only requirement to be a Valiant member is just come and post. Doesn't cost anything except your time, and who knows, you might actually get to know some people that are pretty cool.
Indeed.
I agree. Let's get on with the music.
I was thinking maybe you guys wanted to hear some. So yeah, it's about 23 minutes, a little bit longer than usual. So sit back as we enjoy the dulcet tunes of Shenmue.
funky rhythm. One more time for the DJ. Gotta give them. Let me take you on a trip. Let me take you on a ride.
would not have guessed there were 2 Nightmare tracks in the same game, unless it's from Shenmue 2.
And we are back. So Nicole was bringing up something right there off of like towards the very tail end of our musical interlude there. Trying to find music for this game, I cannot stress enough, is very difficult. I thought that I had the right track because usually, Scott and Nicole would give me a couple tracks that they want to see on the Team Valiant Gamers picks, and I'll go pull them together, make the video. But again, the trying to get to the music itself is difficult. Trying to get names of the tracks consistent is another thing. So I do apologize. I thought I had the right one, but sometimes we screw up.
That was the song called The Nightmare, and I'm assuming that is from the nightmare that Rio has of Londi. So that is completely understandable. But
so what part of the game did your song come from?
It came from, so it's the same exact song as the other song that Scott had suggested, the Technique Passed Down. It's a slightly different version. I always recognize it as the theme of, I forget his name, Guang, the son of Lord Master Chen.
Guizhong?
Guizhong, yes. I thought it was his theme. But the song is called Nightmare, not The Nightmare, but just Nightmare.
So going forward, if you guys can actually send me a clip or something of the song, it doesn't even have to be a good quality one, just so I know that I'm getting the right one. I'll be happy to double check. But again, I just saw a track called The Nightmare and I listened to it and I'm like, hey, this is pretty good. I'll throw it in.
It was good.
Sorry.
I'm not complaining. No, it was okay. I just figured I'd mention it, but no, everything was really good besides that.
There are no mistakes at Valiant Gamers, only happy accidents.
Yes.
Except if there are little pumpkin-headed dudes in Japanese games involved, because I'll fucking throw a controller like it's nobody's business.
No, that was a fantastic, in my opinion, overall musical segment. Probably one of the best ones.
Thank you. Yeah, you had some great picks. Even if I got one of them wrong, the rest of them were pretty good. And how telling is that I picked the wrong track and it's still a banger and it works out anyway. I mean,
yes.
You can literally throw your shoe and just hit a good song with your eyes closed in Shenmue and not even try. So I hope that you guys.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I didn't say anything even until afterwards because I'm like, I don't think I've ever really listened to this song, and I listened to it yeah, this is fine. This can totally be one of my picks. I assumed that maybe the one that Scott picked that was similar was going to come up, but then I saw that was the last song. But everything turned out, like you said, it was really good.
Yeah, this one got sourced. This one got sourced from that 2018 Always soundtrack I was talking about earlier. So I just saw The Nightmare and I went with it. But yeah, very, very, very telling that still worked out. And I hope you guys enjoyed it because, that's one of the reasons that we do these things and put together these postmortems and these little assemblages of music is that you guys out there at home are enjoying it.
Yeah. If anyone wants to check out the song that I did have in mind for this, if you are a part of the community of the Valiant Gamers music community, just search for the word Nightmare and it's on the Shenmue soundtrack and give that a listen.
And funny enough, I was out there dragging my balls through glass trying to find Shenmue music to put together. Yeah, I don't recommend it. It feels bad, man. But Nightmare.
I've done that once.
Good times. Well, how did that work out for you?
Well, if the intention was to get the shards of glass in my ball sack, it worked. Metaphorically speaking, of course.
Wow, congratulations. Also, I should have played this a lot earlier, but before I forget, this is now on the soundboard of the Valiant Gamers Discord.
Yo, bro!
Oh. I'm okay. Oh, man.
Yeah,
we need that too.
and it's another good one to go beside another fan favorite, and by fan favorite I mean it's me. I'm the fan. This one right here.
Son, do I look gainfully employed to you?
It's a classic.
I have a
Love it.
lot of opinions about the voice acting in Shenmue, but really I have a lot of opinions about Shenmue in general. But ladies first, Nicole, this was your game. You're going to be steeped in Shenmue for the next few months and probably not even sick of it by the time it's all done.
No,
Tell us some of
no,
your
I
thoughts
won't.
about Shenmue 1.
I won't be sad about it at all. I I expected to catch a lot of shit from certain people who may be present about the quality of the voice acting, and sure enough, I received it. But that being said, I was a little bit confused about the quality of the voice acting when I first played this game,
Uh-huh.
but it's kind of interesting how quickly you just kind of become accustomed to it as just like the normal way things should be. And you just kind of go with it. I absolutely love most of the voice performances in this game. Someone had commented, I think it was Dakota, had commented that did they just get like some random people that spoke English, like Japanese people that spoke English, and just like they gave them a script and asked them to read the lines? Because it's kind of odd in the way that they would correctly pronounce some of the words, like more than you would expect of a game of that era. Like saying like Dio instead of Rio or Rio or whatever. But I had such a fondness for it. I loved the voice actor of Rio. I thought he was a really good job. And spoiler alert, they got him back for Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 3, which was quite an accomplishment in my opinion.
What is his name? It's Corey something. Do you remember his last name?
Not off the top of my head.
Surely somebody in chat has got to know this information. Looking at you, Grimace, but anybody that knows. Yeah, but, I agree. Rio's fantastic.
I just love the fact that they got him back, and he still sounds the same. It still sounds like good old Rio.
Nice.
And that just made me so happy. I have a lot of opinions about Shenmue 3, but that's for, the Shenmue 3 Post-Mortem. But no, I am so happy that I got a chance to play this game, because this game was just such a life changer for me. It really kind of changed my future tastes in gaming. And to be able to share it with a lot of people who hadn't seen it before was just, I love doing it. I've played this game for 2 people before this, and they watched it and they loved it, and to be able to do that to another group of people again, it just makes me happy that I'm still years later just kind of spreading the love of Shenmue.
I knew he'd know it. Thank you, Grimace. Yeah, Corey Marshall is fantastic, and I won't interrupt you for too long, but definitely the standout star of the voice acting for Shenmue, and it's good to see him come back.
But that was pretty much it anyway.
Yeah, I could say a lot of things about the voice acting, because when I played it back in the day, we're right there on that tail end of voice acting is very new and novel in video games, and it's not really quite good. And something about Shenmue just tickled my brain a little bit, because like some of the voice acting was pretty good. Like Landi was really good. Iwao was good. Even Ine-san and Fukusan, had good voice acting that seemed to fit the character, even if it was a little.
Even Goro.
Yeah, even Goro. Goro was definitely a whole ass mood. And then there was lots of not very good voice acting. It's like Dakota said. It's just you just picked up random people from the street, maybe some GIs or whatever, or expats working, maybe even some English-speaking Japanese people. And I have to wonder what went into the voice direction of this game, because in some areas it's really good, like the pronunciation of of Chinese names is particularly interesting
Yes.
and authentic, and the pronunciation of Japanese words is really good, but the emphasis is on the wrong syllables in some places, and some of it is really hammy, and some of it is years ago I used to be Chinese, but like it still was better than a lot of voice acting that we had become accustomed to in that late 16-bit, 32-bit era of gaming, and kind of a promise of better things to come.
Especially when you... I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, especially when you consider the scope of the game.
Exactly what I was going to say, because there's just so much fucking voice acting in this game. There's so much music in this game. There's so much content that they managed to fit in. The main loop of the story isn't super long, and sometimes I forget just how relatively short the actual questing is. If you really are just focused on getting through the story, you can get the game done, easily in a day or two. But there's just so much thought into putting this world together and making you feel like you live in it. And however weird the voice acting is at times, it's like Grimm said, it's so endearing. Even my partner, who's not a huge video gamer, has watched me play Shenmue and thought the same thing. There's just something about that speaking lines weirdly through an old-timey telephone, that audio compression. When I look on the internet and I see that there's like audio restoration efforts, I'm thinking, why? That's a feature, not a bug. But I could opine about that. We have a Shenmue virgin among us. Selbek, now that we have thoroughly and violently popped your Shenmue cherry, what have you got to say about some of the things that you saw and heard?
I'm actually very interested in this.
So, you guys have several playthroughs and several years of this game under your belt, whereas this was my first go around. So I have had a lot to soak in, to take in, and just to think about in terms of seeing everything for the first time, putting everything together. It seemed, the game was great. I loved just about every second of it. It seemed there were pretty obvious padding areas, like having to get a job in order to raise the money to get the ticket to go to China.
Right.
Necessary, but it felt like that was kind of elongated for padding's sake, and other than the sequences where like you're making more progress towards learning about the Mad Angels and stuff day by day, or night by night, should I say?
Right.
I don't know. It kind of lost its luster for me after maybe like the third work day of
I got you.
Racing forklifts and then putting boxes on boxes and.
Dude, that's the best part of the game, in my opinion.
Right, and I'm sitting here thinking I'm bored by this, but at the same time, I have to imagine how entertained I would be if I myself played that portion.
Right.
I was in my mind. I was thinking, this part looks like it would be so much fun to actually play. But man, I was not really into it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Understandable.
Yeah, that is understandable.
It's like,
other than
if you could sit there and actually play it yourself, it would probably be fine. Having friends to riff on the game with you also makes it fine. But I could see like just watching somebody do this on YouTube would be like, what is the appeal of this game?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. If that was the clip I was introduced to for Shenmue, I probably would still be like, no thanks. It seems fine.
Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit better about completely messing up a few times, because at least that must have been somewhat entertaining just to watch me completely flail around figuring out where to go.
Oh yeah. My whole commentary during that entire time was partly me trying to stay engaged. But other than that, the game felt like it was really well paced. That may have to do with the fact that you pretty much knew where you were going.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do a lot of running around and meeting everybody and
Yeah.
trying to remember where everything was.
Right.
So that felt really good for
Yeah.
me, just watching. Meeting all the different people, all the different personalities, hearing all the different voice acting. And speaking of the voice acting, from my perspective, yeah, maybe it's not the best voice acting there is out there, but even for the time, everybody's voice was consistent.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have a dip or a surge in anyone's particular performance. It was consistent the entire game. And I feel like that is really what helped with a lot of the immersion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, it was campy. Sure, a lot of it was a little, like, okay, they wouldn't say this if they were actual people. But the fact that they stayed consistent with those performances is like, okay, yeah, this person is this person in this game. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yo, bro.
Yo, bro.
In terms of, I don't know if we're ready to talk about the story yet, but in terms of the story, I was really intrigued and interested to see where it went, and I was able. You guys were very kind not to really spoil how much of a cliffhanger it was going to be, so that I could experience the disdain when the credits started rolling right when it started getting good.
Feel our pain, but add 20 years to that.
Well, I'll add 3 months to it. How's that sound?
I have
Fair
a
enough,
question. Grimace has a question. As a bystander who hasn't played the game myself, the game does have a day and night cycle and seem to keep track of how many days passed. How does this translate into missable content? There are a lot of side quests that you can do if you're encouraged to do so. And
Yeah,
before
like
before I dive into that, I will agree with you, Scott. I do think that you do spend a disproportionate amount of the time riding around on a forklift, and it's pretty novel for 3 days. But then it's like, all right, I can try to aim to get a raise, but I really want to see things progress. And I feel like maybe they didn't just have as much main story quest content to put in this game as they wanted to in trying to build this whole world and this engine and this vibe. It would have been nice if they had more time to give us more narrative to do, but there's no shortage of side content to do, and you can miss things. Like if you don't go check on the cat every day, Nicole.
I was gonna say we
Checked
missed
on it
Mimi.
just earlier that day.
Every day. Yeah,
I did every day.
She did her to her credit. She did her best. But if you get caught up just one day trying to chase a thread over here, working your 9-to-5 forklift job, it's very easy to miss things, and there's really no way to go back unless you start the game again. It's one of the many things
I didn't want to reload.
Yeah, it's one of the many things that gives this game us replayability.
There are absolutely missable events, missable events with Nozomi, missable events with random people, that will, give you rewards if you complete. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but I started a quest and I never finished it when a woman couldn't was looking for where a house was, and she said she was going to go way by the park, and I found the house, but I never followed up, and it's just that was missed. It's just kind of the way it is, and that's kind of the way life is, and I like that kind of stuff. If I was playing on my own, this would have been a very different playthrough. I would have spent obsessive amounts of time in the casino, getting all of the special capsule toy prizes. I would have spent way too much money trying to get all of the capsule toy prizes from near the arcade and by the Tomato Mart at the harbor. But I had a month, so I did have to kind of pick and choose what I focused on. Yeah, and it kind of worked out well time-wise.
And you did well. I mean, we really did just kind of scratch the surface of this game.
Yeah, and this game
would recommend playing.
This game was kind of a tantamount to what developers believed equated to replay value back in those days, right? Yeah. Missable content. Oh, you could have done this. You could have done that. You better play the game again.
And while open world games can have kind of maybe lost their luster a little bit these days because there are a lot of open worlds filled with absolutely nothing in modern gaming. I don't think this was quite true of Shenmue. A game of this scale, trying to tell this narrative with, again, all of the production values, the voice acting, the music, the graphics, this has never really been attempted before. And despite the fact that this game has some flaws, the series has some glaring flaws that we will explore as we go through it, to be sure. Man, what a great freshman effort from a series, showing off just a lifetime of experience that Yu Suzuki had. I can't say enough. And also, I will say, let's just say the Japanese don't have a great relationship with their Asian neighbors. You can read through history that they don't quite get along with the Chinese and the Koreans. And there's a similar, I don't mean to get political, but indulge me a little bit here. Here in the States, we have immigrants that come from other countries that form the backbone of our service and agricultural and industrial industries. And we would be a lot worse off if we didn't have them, and sometimes we don't always have a very good relationship with those communities. And Japan has a really similar thing kind of going on with its Chinese and Korean immigrants. There's a lot of non-Japanese people kind of working outside of the public eye. And it's really lovely to see this kind of love letter to China and Pan-Asian culture that is Shenmue in a way that I don't think I've ever seen in another game, prior to it. Other games have probably come since then, but this was really kind of breathtaking because it's not just Ryo's story. It's not just a Japanese story. It is a Chinese martial arts epic through and through.
And honestly, not just Chinese or other Pan-Asian countries. It had a very surprising for its age, pro-American, like the character of Tom and his kind of acceptance. Like when, Ryo was like, you're one of my best friends. And like, it was in a time where American culture was kind of looked at as like an oddity. Something to be looked at with a sense of curiosity, more of just rather than acceptance. I thought that was pretty forward thinking.
Oh, I don't disagree at all. Tom was a great character, and I love to see that because, typically Americans are kind of seen as oddities in games, but we have covered at least one other game where Japan's view of America is surprisingly positive, and that was Earthbound. But there was just not a whole lot of, I can't imagine there was a whole lot of games leading up to Shenmue where they really explored what it was like to be Chinese in Japan.
There's actually, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, one of the things that has always kind of fascinated me, and especially as we go into Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 3, is how they don't really talk about Chinese politics at all. Because you are going to be in Hong Kong in Shenmue 2. At the time, it was under British occupation. So that wasn't really a thing. But then, I don't want to go into spoilers, but they never really touch upon the politics of China, which there's a lot.
Yeah, but that's not really ultimately what I was talking about. I'm more talking about, it was, not a view about China as a political entity, but the Chinese people living in Japan among them. And a lot of Japanese games just, it's like they don't exist. And it was very cool to see that spotlight in a positive way shown on them on Shenmue. I just thought that was interesting. Something I've thought about the last 2 days, and I just wanted to bring up. That's all.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I'm saying in addition to that, it's always fascinated me. That whole thing has also fascinated me on top of what you said, which I agree with you, but I was just saying that especially when when they're talking about like the emperor and how he commissioned the mirrors and stuff like that, and they talked about that very briefly in Shenmue 1.
Yeah.
And we'll learn a few more things about that in Shenmue 2, but like they talk a lot about the history of China, which is
Right.
fascinating.
Right.
I love it, but they don't really talk about the current political climate of China, which is kind of a strange choice, but an interesting choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's one of those games, along with the Three Kingdoms series, that got me looking at China with a different lens. If I didn't have those points of view, there's this whole wealth of like history and literature that stems from China, that's instrumental in making Japan what it is too.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, I would, there's a lot going on in China. They have a very problematic government, but they are, one of the oldest extant civilizations with just a wealth and body of culture that's truly fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, are you still awake? Do we bore you to sleep?
Oh no, yeah, I'm just listening, man. See, hearing you guys gush about this game that you guys have been enamoring for more of for the last 20 years is endearing.
So, going back to Grimace's point about things that you can miss your first playthrough, there's a time limit in this game, and if you don't finish this game, I believe it's by April or May of 1988. You will not only miss your opportunity to get revenge, but Lan Di comes back for you and he kills you. And here in a second, I believe I have that video that I'm going to pull up so we can watch that together if you guys would be interested.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's, I'm sorry, go for it.
I was going to say, and you do see, and Grimace had mentioned this too. One thing I definitely wanted to bring attention to is that when they made this game, they took actual weather reports, accurate right down to the day, and made the weather reflect what was actually happening on that day in Japan in 1986. I thought that was really cool.
Great attention to detail.
Yes. And there were things that you would experience just by living through it. Like in Dobuita, on New Year's, all of the women of the town would be wearing their furisodes and yukatas and their festival outfits. And I don't know, I loved the attention to detail and in living in that living world. I thought it was really cool.
Isn't it strange how you're born in 1980s of America, so you're totally out of the time and place where this all unfolded, and yet the game was so good at establishing this time and place that came well outside of my point of view that I can still be so nostalgic for it. Am I the only one here that feels that way?
No, absolutely, I agree.
I'm sorry, I can only imagine if you actually grew up during this time too, it must have been quite a throwback.
Mm-hmm. But you were going to show the video?
I was. Give me 1 second here.
I'm sure you have it prepared, unlike some people that don't have showing random YouTube videos in the middle of streams prepared.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I completely derailed the very last stream here just to pull up something. It was like, come on, you have to see this now. It's never going to be relevant.
It was worth it. It was worth it. But thank you, everyone who was watching, for bearing with me as I was trying to figure it the fuck out.
Yeah, I've got a couple of tools in my toolbox. I need to go over these with you sometime. I think you'll find it very handy. But yes, without further ado, let me put a stop to the music here and fire this up.
It also helped break up the boring forklift.
Yeah.
When the cherry blossoms fall, the dragon shall descend on you. Hurry.
A dream? The cherry blossoms fall. I'll never tell you where Ryo-san is! Ah! Fukusan! Landy! Ryo-san, don't do it! I heard there's another mirror. What? Give it to me, now. Not a chance! If that's the way you want it, I'll just take it from you. I will avenge my father's death!
And we're back. So, yeah, if you sit around feeding all the cats and talking to all the people and lifting all the forks and playing all the video games and getting all the capsules and not trying to avenge your father, that could happen.
What do you think we were doing? What do you think getting all of those capsule toys was doing? It was avenging my father.
Keep those you love. And all of your toys close to you. Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, the game gives you it. I think you would really have to be trying to hit that limit. Because even if you're aiming to do all of the extra content, you should be able to do it all with some clearance to actually finish the story. Unless you truly and really are bad at Shenmue, and hey, it could be possible. I haven't played it in a while. Maybe it could happen.
I doubt it.
But yeah, good stuff. A lot of attention to detail in this game, a lot of thought into not just this one game, but the whole world that is that's a part of, and the other games that will follow with it. And sometimes that worked out, and sometimes that didn't. So, Nicole, tell me something that you don't like about Shenmue.
I did not expect this question. I don't. I feel like I'm criticizing. My criticisms would be unfair. So I feel like I love the fact that you could enter so many businesses, but I don't like the fact that you couldn't enter, one, all of them, and two, you couldn't actually like enter them. So example, like the motorcycle shop, like you could walk up to it and talk with the owner of it, but you couldn't actually go into it. You couldn't see what was there. The jacket shop, you could walk up to it, but you couldn't go into it. And again, that's not fair of me to judge it all, but if I had to think of something I didn't like about it, that would be pretty much it. I can't really think of too much that is within the restrictions of the game system that I would criticize too much. Like, I mean, the music was great. I mean, I'm not going to be giving it a perfect score because I think it has flaws, but
sure,
I liked a lot of the flaws. I found them endearing in their own way. So I don't know. That question threw me for a loop. I'm sorry.
No, that's fair. That's probably a question that I will posit to either one of you for, a game that you suggest and feel strongly about, because I think there's something to be said about being able to objectively look at something you love and see these are some things that are wrong with it and that get under my skin a little bit. Now, Scott, because you don't have the same attachment to Shenmue like some of us, it can be maybe a little bit easier to look at something more objectively. And you've already kind of mentioned that sometimes that forklift section of the game got a little thin as you were waiting for things to start to progress in the story. Is there anything else you think you didn't like or you would have changed if you were able to do so?
I don't think I fully understood Leo's disposition to Nagomi. Like she, and maybe I'm stereotyping here, but she seemed like the eagerly sought after housewife material that I would expect from a 1980s Japanese society.
Yeah.
So like I know he's distracted with the hunt for revenge for his father and stuff, but how easily he was basically stringing her along, trying to. It felt like, and maybe this wasn't the way it was meant to be portrayed, but it felt like he wanted her to be there for him, but he didn't want anything to progress between the two. Yeah. And she was just so confused and just really put out by it all. I felt bad for her. I felt bad for her because she wanted to be there for Rio for everything he was trying to do, and he was keeping her at an arm's length, but also like pulling her in just a little bit every once in a while, and it's just like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's fair.
Have a little respect for your lady.
So Grimace was asking, does this game have an easy mode or no choice in difficulty? Not that I'm aware of. The game is pretty forgiving in terms of if you fail something that would stop you dead in your tracks, you don't actually game over, except for literally one time in this game. If you wait too long to finish it, it just lets you try again and again and again until you get it, which that's not bad.
So yes. However, there are a few points in the game that will punish you for not being able to successfully do it. So most of the time, if you can't do a QTE, you can't beat a fight, they just take you back to the beginning of that fight. But there are a few times, Selbek actually knows exactly the time I'm talking about, where if you fail, you actually are punished by losing a whole day. So that's a really good way to get to the end of the game fast. And anything in the interim that you would theoretically miss will just be gone. So it's a little bit less forgiving in those circumstances, but the game is extremely forgiving in other circumstances.
It's funny that you brought that up, because typically when we do a game of the month, I like to go and look up speedruns for that game, which I like speedruns anyway. But this game was no exception. I just went to go and look and see what its speedrunning scene looked like. And the very thing that you just described, losing a day, failing to get into the warehouse district, is exactly the strategy that people use in the bad ending category of the game. It's the most efficient way to advance the time to... It looks mind-numbingly boring to do. I don't know why somebody would do that on purpose, but that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, it's better than going through when you're playing the game, you can't just get up and go to bed. It will actually not even give you the option to go to bed until a certain time. So I can see how that would be definitely a very efficient way of progressing the timeline.
Yeah, the game insists that you live in this world, whether you want to or not, whether you want to just see the story finish now so you can move on with your life. It's like, nope, you're literally going to wait an entire day to pass before you'll see something new happen. And you're going to go play all the Space Harrier in the world until you're absolutely sick of it. And to some, that might be bothersome. Some of the things that, like you said, Nicole, that we enjoy about Shenmue are things that another gamer who really just wants to experience this, but this is their cup of tea, is going to be driven crazy by. And since Scott, you already touched on the fact that there are some points where the story wears a little thin and you're kind of just wasting time for the sake of wasting time. If you like the vibe of this world, you don't mind it so much. And I like the vibe of this world, so it's great. But if you are just wanting to move on and see what happens next, it is frustrating that there's no option to pass time. And that could just very well be not only a conscious decision that the developer wants you to marinate in this world, but kind of the unfortunate decision that maybe they just didn't have time to do everything that they wanted to do to put in the game. And, you know, they've got to get the next installment of the game out there. And yeah, it does wear thin at some points. You know, I could see that for what it is. I don't mind just hanging out in this world, but I do, you know, and they were doing something really special and ambitious here with the tools that they had. A game of this nature would probably be a little bit easier to make today with the tools and the talent and the knowledge that you have now, but those things, you know, weren't to be taken for granted back then. We didn't have it. You know, this was a bit of a trendsetter, and
interesting that you should say that, considering Shenmue 3 was made in 2019.
Well, so here's the thing. I really enjoyed Shenmue 1 and 2, but for reasons that we will discuss with the Shenmue 2 Post-Mortem, you know, the ending of Shenmue 2, not a bad ending, but also the years that followed before we got the next installment of the game. Those, I'm just glad that we got a third installment at all. And maybe this story will get done one day, but if you can't stand cliffhangers, this may be some of the biggest gaming blue balls we've ever seen outside of Duke Nukem Forever, because it has taken a long time for this game to come together. And while I can respect the ambition that goes into it, especially towards the end of Shenmue 2, I think the series was kind of pressing on my limits, because Shenmue 1 kind of came at that period. I'm still a little nostalgic and childlike in my gaming wonder, but Shenmue 2, I'm a little older now. I'm attached to the story, and it seems like it's taking forever for it to unfold. Again, though, I think there'll be a time and a place. I think those ideas are things that I want to explore more in the Shenmue 3 Post-Mortem, because I have not played Shenmue 3. And that's going to be completely new to me. And that might change how I feel. It may not. It may exacerbate some things that I feel, but I'm going to hold my cards a little bit close to my chest.
That's fair. I have played Shenmue 3, and I know I'm not going to say anything about it, but I'm interested in seeing how you feel about it.
I will have feelings. I'm sure I'll probably have some really good feelings, and I'm sure I'm going to have some, God damn it, they did it again feelings, but I'll elaborate more at that time, because I don't know until I see it, right? But
please look forward to it.
Please look forward to it indeed in 4 months from now, however long it takes us to get there. But, so, yeah, I think we've reached the point where we can kind of put a capstone on how we feel. Nicole, what would you rate this game, and what's a lasting takeaway that you want to give us?
I would say I mean, I'm starting with the games that I love for the game of the month, so these are going to get high ratings. I would give this game probably, if I took into account the music and I took into account the characters, the world, but then also other things like, you know, the limitations, of the hardware, the idea of wanting much more than was there, which, whether that's fair or not, I still did want more. The cliffhanger, and Yu Suzuki for being an absolute genius, but also an absolute bastard.
Yep.
I would give this game a 4.25, I'd say, out of 5.
Okay.
the music was a 5 for me. I adore the soundtrack. The gameplay of Shenmue 1, I want to specify specifically Shenmue 1 was a 4 for me. It felt a lot like Virtua Fighter. I love fighting games. I love the combo system. I had a lot of fun with it. Going back to what Grimace said earlier, like the 70-man fight, I didn't get it the first time, but they were very forgiving there, where you just would start at the beginning of the fight until you got it.
Yeah.
It was fun. Like, that whole sequence is really fun.
Yeah, that song in that fight was my choice, and it gets a little repetitive, and yet it so greatly encaptures both this adventurous spirit of a guy that's been struggling to put all these ends together, and it finally looks like he's about to hit pay dirt and get on the right path to where he needs to be, while at the same time just absolutely get smashed on by 70 dudes all at once in this epic culmination of the game. The soundtrack may be eclipsed in terms of melodic value by other games, but god damn, it's so good at not just being ambient to give you a sense of feeling, but also just really rousing those emotions. I really do. If you can, however you could track these sundry soundtracks down, give it a listen. This game's got fantastic music.
Yes.
It really does.
But no, overall, I mean, I love it. It's hard for me to, obviously, it's hard for me to find a bad thing to say about it. There are conflicting emotions, mostly about what it's done to me emotionally as a franchise over the past 20 years. But I just love it so damn much. It is one of those comfort games for me, like Lunar. But I can play it if I'm ever feeling kind of down. I can just like go visit Dobuita and I kind of feel at home.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's something that is definitely a positive for me. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4.25.
Agreed. And to the Shenmue neophyte, Scott, what would you rate the first Shenmue?
I'm going to give it a flat 4.
Nice.
I liked the vibe. I liked the dialogue. I liked the music. I liked everything that I saw. There was just a little bit of that padding, and it's. I'm interested. I'm really interested to see where this goes. So I'm excited for Nicole's next month.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Shenmue is nothing but a vibe check, Wandervox. That's well described. I'm going to have to join you and give this game a 4 as well, which seems a little strange as somebody that has a lot of strong opinions about Shenmue. It truly is gaming's A Song of Ice and Fire. And that, in spite of evidence to the contrary, we hope beyond hope that one day it will see a desirable end. And also got a TV show that left us feeling a little bit wanting. That is the anime.
Yeah.
I don't know why. The anime just did not gel with me. It did not give me the same comfort vibes that the game gave. So after a couple of episodes, I definitely checked out of Shenmue the animation. Maybe you'll like it better than we did. So I would check that out if you like what we saw here. I just can't promise that you'll love it. It's an incomplete series, and I can't couch that, behind evasive language in hopes of spoiling anybody here. So I'm sorry. This series, it doesn't have a conclusion as far as I'm aware, even with Shenmue 3. And that's really fucking frustrating after almost 30 years of seeing this series unfold. I'm happy that it got a third installment after lots of fan outcry and funding to make that happen. But there is something about having a wonderful series that just doesn't have an end that sours the experience for me a little bit. And that, as much as I wish it didn't, it does color my opinion of every game that I've played in this series, and it's going to take even more of an effect in Shenmue 2, a game that in many ways I think is a great evolution of what we saw here in Shenmue 1. So whatever I'm saying now, don't let that dissuade you from tuning in when she comes back to us with Shenmue 2, because Shenmue 2, by and large, is a fantastic game that's even greater in scope if you thought that was possible. And I'm looking forward to it. But I can't ignore that, right? And I think that's the greatest flaw, is just knowing, or really not knowing, that this game is going to get an end that I can say makes me feel good. But this game damn sure makes me feel good. I love to play it for all of its little faults, like that sometimes weird voice acting that sounds like it was done over 500 baud modem. Those tanky controls that are a little awkward. They were awkward back then. They're even more awkward now. This Shenmue itself really is just Virtua Fighter the RPG. That's kind of where it started on the Saturn before it became this monster that it is now. It's a beautiful chimera, but it's still a chimera of all these disparate forms of gameplay mushed together to give us a feeling of what it's like to live in 80s Japan. And no matter how you swing it, that's going to get weird. But I just love the way that this game makes me feel. And in spite of knowing some of the problems that will come in later Shenmues, I find this game to be almost, like some games I can only go back and maybe replay once a year, twice, once every 2 years, maybe once every 5. But I could see myself coming back every couple of months to playing Shenmue if I really wanted to. If I had more time, I would love to say one day that I got all the capsules that I could take with me to Shenmue 2. It's a 4. I think that's really high praise for a game. It's a recognition of all the things that made it great. But I just, I can't ignore some of the greater problems that I have with the series. But it's a great game. You should play it.
I'm definitely not ignoring some of those things. I will say that my 0.25, in addition to that 4, mostly comes because at the very least I am an altruistic soul. So even though it didn't end well, I still have high hopes. I don't want to spoil anything about Shenmue 3. So don't. I won't. You mentioned it earlier, Barry, and now Grimace said it too, about how things would be done better if it was made today. The one thing I will say, this isn't a spoiler for the story at all. The one thing I did not really like at all about Shenmue 3 was the gameplay. I thought it was a massive downgrade from the first 2.
I see. Well,
can't wait to see that.
I've gone to great lengths over the years to not spoil myself on Shenmue 3 until such time as I'm ready to enjoy it. It's been years since it's come out, so the fact that I know as little as I do about Shenmue 3, aside from some of the vibe that you've expressed, Nicole, and also the fact that this fucking story still isn't done, that's about all I know. And that it takes...
Yeah, no, it's worth playing, especially with someone who... I know how you feel about the Shenmue franchise overall. I think it's worth seeing. It's worth seeing the continuation of the story. And there's a lot of things I really love about it, and I cannot wait to go into detail about my feelings about the game when I play it. But now is not that time.
It really sounds like you all are feeling the same about Shenmue as I do about Golden Sun.
Interesting. You've mentioned this a couple of times in passing. See it cropping up again. Is it also a series that never got a proper finish?
Yes and no. So, just like Shenmue, the first Golden Sun ends on a cliffhanger. And the broader game comes out in the second game. And while that has an ending, they do continue the series with a third game that does not hold up to the previous 2.
I got you. I wonder if it's kind of a case, because not nearly as much time went between those last two Golden Suns like the last two Shenmues. You think maybe the original developers had moved on and maybe the steam had just kind of petered off?
Oh, no, absolutely. The entire original it had been 10 years since
Yeah.
Golden Sun 2 before Golden Sun 3 came out. The entire team that worked on Golden Sun had moved on from Camelot, and it was a completely new team taking on the task of creating a Golden Sun, which it worked out. It was fine, but it was very clear that they missed something.
Mhm.
Quite a few somethings, in my opinion.
Well, that is intriguing. It sounds very
sure.
similar.
It sounds very similar, yes.
So yeah, despite my, criticisms here towards the end, I just do want to end my final thoughts on Shenmue 1 with a good note. It is easily, if it's not the best game on the Dreamcast, it's one of the best. It's if you have a Dreamcast and you don't have this game, you are doing it wrong, and you need to correct that right now. Just such wild ambition. And
I would absolutely recommend the Steam version, the remastered ones.
it's good. It's very good. Well, that's how our group therapy session is drawing close to a close tonight. But again, thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing this experience with us. I'm always happy to see my old friend Shenmue again. And it one of the best things about doing these streams is not only revisiting games that we each hold dear, but also having some new experiences and some shared experiences too.
Do we want to talk about the next month's?
I kind of want to hear about next month. Scott, what you got for us?
Well, I want to see if chat has come on to the hints I've been giving the last week or two. It's been so subtle. I don't know that anybody could ever guess what it was.
Have to really read between the lines.
But it's The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
I think this will be the newest game that we have featured as Game of the Month.
It's pretty dang fresh. It's only a week old at this point.
Battletoads. Oh, Vox, you were so close. This close.
Week and a half.
Yeah, I remember being asked a
No,
couple
I'm sorry,
of months.
just a couple days.
I was asked a couple of months into our streams by my mother's like, when are y'all going to play some new games? It's like,
Yeah.
well, someday.
When they start making new games as good as the old games, damn it.
Well, you can count on me. I think I'm going to stick with some of the newer ones for a while.
And,
I know,
and that's
like-
fantastic. This will be the newest game that we've touched, and maybe we'll touch in some time. And I'm really excited. What I've seen of the gameplay of this new Zelda looks fantastic. I'm very, very hyped for it.
I will say that I have already played and beaten it. And yes, but I will save all of that for the Post-Mortem here in a month.
Well, you better save, or Skunkworks is going to be very cross with us if you don't.
Well done.
Thanks. I try. And again, please visit us at valiantgamers.com, not only just for the great discourse that we have there, but if you hang around a little bit and stick around the community, you might get to see a growing music collection that we have there.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the music collection we have thus far. Our standards are very good. It feels nice to be part of that community again. It feels like it's getting close to the back to the old original Game Supply / OG VG experience, and that makes me happy.
With a lot fewer banties, which is also nice.
Yes, it's also, and also going back to what you had said earlier, Random. It was my pleasure to bring this game to all of you this month. I'm glad that everyone that watched enjoyed it. I look forward to going through this whole series. If you don't want me to do that, if you want to play something else, definitely let us know. Let us know on valiantgamers.com. But that is the plan thus far. And but yeah, no, it was really fun, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that.
Anytime. And of course, we do these for you. So if you like what we're doing, we're happy to hear that. If you want to see us play something that we haven't talked about here, please go to the forums and let us know. We've got a lot of submissions kind of just sitting in the can waiting to be acted on. We've had so many, we haven't even been up for a year, but we've already had so many great games to go through. But there's a lot of comfort knowing that we've got at least 3 good solid months of games ahead of us, because Scott has the new Zelda coming up. Nicole's got Shenmue 2 coming up in a couple of months. And in November, I'm going to have a lot of fun sharing Parasite Eve with you guys. I've already mentioned that in previous Shenmue streams, so that's not really a surprise to anybody.
That'll help us get into the festive spirit.
Absolutely. But one of the great things about Parasite Eve that I'm excited about is some of you know it is based on a book, which got adapted into both a movie and a video game. And the video game is quite different from the original book in some ways, and for the movie that's based on it too, since it might take a little while to read through the book on stream, and I don't know if anybody necessarily wants to hear me read, we will be watching the movie at some point in the Valiant Gamers Discord. So I think that the game should be wrapped up that month with enough time to give us the pleasure of doing that, so please look forward to it.
I want to hear you read.
You know, I've always wanted to take a Chuck Tingle book and read it on Twitch, but I would get banned so fast. Wouldn't be funny, but if you don't know who Chuck Tingle is, you should go Google that right now. You're welcome.
Vox suggests an ASMR stream. I think you should read the book just like whispering in a very low ASMR voice.
Maybe. I'm going to sit here and read the chat in my ASMR voice. K Grimace says, the music collection rocks. Nah, I'm on board for more Shenmue when it's your month. Is that what you're here for, chat?
Big
It's
brilliant
all
man.
right.
Watch as I get banned from Twitch.
Let me go get my skin-tight green screen boxers on. Anyway, we're starting to peter out
I'll
a
read
little
you a
bit
book
here.
and think.
So if you guys don't mind, I didn't put all of the best music in our collection earlier. We are going to be going out tonight on the best track in the game.
Nice.
And you probably know what it is, Nicole, but the Shenmue theme is iconic, and the orchestral version of it is truly breathtaking. And
Yes.
as we signed out the last Shenmue stream with that song, we're going to sign out on the Post-Mortem stream with that. So if there's nothing else to be talked about, going once, going twice, sold. I'm Random Encounter.
I'm Althena.
And I'm Selbek.
And we hope you guys had a good time tonight. Be tuning in for the new Zelda here in a couple of days. And until next time, you guys have a wonderful evening.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.